Okay, so this is what we're going to be building or designing today in Fusion. It's a phone stand. As you can see here, I kind of have a model one already. The stand sits kind of at an angle. We're going to build it 90 degrees, obviously, but the phone sits on there. There is some space at the bottom so you can plug in your cord, and the cord can come around the back. I don't have it on here, but on ours we will design a slot in the back here as well, or a hole, so that way the cord can exit out the back without any trouble. The only things to really watch out for here, and we're going to take a look at, is when we're designing this, we're going to be cutting it out in acrylic on the laser cutter. And acrylic, although you buy it and it says an 1/8 inch or 3 millimeter or 4 millimeter, it really isn't. It's like kind of buying a 2x4 and realizing it's an 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So same thing with acrylic. We have to measure the thickness of it, and each one's different, which wouldn't be a big deal, except we need to know that thickness when we're designing this part. This piece of acrylic here has to slide through. Let me turn off the back a second. Oh, the other part, turn off the legs. The acrylic has to slide through these little slots here. So we need to know the thickness of each piece of acrylic we're using. And in this case, I have it designed to 3 millimeters, which is nominal, but acrylic can be 2.85, 2.65. And although it's not a huge deal, it can make your stand a little wobbly. So we're going to take a look at how to do a user parameter and put it into our sketch. So later when we go to cut these out, we can actually type in the actual value of our acrylic thickness, and it'll adjust our drawing accordingly. So it makes things a lot easier. All right, so let's take a look at how to build this in Fusion. All right. So we're going to start out, obviously, save first thing, so that way we bring in our auto recovery. Phone stand, March 6th, I think it is. I want to save this in my ELEG398 stuff. So if you have made folders, you may want to consider that. It makes things a little easier. All right. So once that has occurred, I usually forget this part, but right click and make two new components. Those two components are going to be the back plate, or the back, and then the legs. That way we have two different pieces, so just kind of keeps our sketches and everything organized a little bit better. I'm going to activate the back, and then before we do anything else, we're going to define what's called a user parameter. This is a measurement that we don't know ahead of time. We'll put in a measurement, but when we go to measure our acrylic, and if you want blue or yellow or clear, it can actually change. The thickness is different depending on the supplier, everything else. So I'm going to go down here to modify and go to change parameters. Now there's two different ones, user parameter and model parameters. And it seems like you would want model because we're making a model, but actually those are all the parameters that we type in, like our dimensions later on. What we want to do is click this plus here and put in a user parameter. So we're going to call this thickness, and it's millimeters, and we have to put in a value kind of to start with. So I'm just going to call 2.85 for that, and that is, you don't have to put a comment, but this is going to be for clear acrylic, but we can change that later. It doesn't really matter. All right, and that's okay. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to do a sketch, and instead of picking now this bottom plane, I'm actually going to pick this front one. And I want to use that because we're going to have a front and a back to this plate here. So go ahead and click that. And then I start with my favorite rectangle, the old center rectangle. And this is kind of the nice part about Fusion here, is you don't, even though it's in millimeters, I can actually type in anything I want. So this height here, I want to have it actually 6 inches because I know that's what my phone is, but down here at this bottom, I can do 70 millimeter. So, and it's fine with that. So go ahead and put that in there. And then that's the main part. We're going to do a couple little extra pieces. I want to do a line. This line is actually not going to be part of the sketch, but it's kind of a guideline. So I put this line in here, and you'll notice this little kind of diagonal T. That's telling me it's perpendicular to this side, which is good because it's a rectangle. I'm going to hit escape for a second to get off of there. and then I'm going to click on this line and change it to what's called a construction line. You can change it to a construction line by going over to Sketch Palette and clicking, and notice it turns it into a dotted line. You can also just type the X key and do the same thing. Why would I need a construction line? Well, I'm going to use this line to lay out those 3 rectangular slots that I'm going to cut in here. So I don't want to actually, like when I'm laying this out, I don't want to cut this with the laser cutter. I just want this as a layout for me. So now I'm going to dimension. I hit the D key. I can also go up here and sketch dimension up here. And I want to go from the top of the rectangle to there. Oh, I guess I didn't pick that up. There we go. And this is going to be 5 inches. I'm going to type in 5, which you would think millimeters, but then I put the quotation marks. That makes it at 5 inches, or 127 millimeters. Notice it does it on the fly here. All right, so now let's put in some rectangles. I need 3 rectangles here. They're all going to be 10 millimeters wide, but the height of them is going to be that thickness parameter that I put in before. So I go 2-point rectangle, just kind of start one. I go right up, and notice it snaps to that construction line. I'm going to pull out a rectangle here. The height is being asked for first, so I'll just type in THI. That'll bring up the thickness. Notice it actually recognizes it. I need to click it so that way it knows. Hit the tab key and then 10 for the width. Hit enter. I can right click and then I can right click and then repeat 2-point rectangle, or you can just go back up here and click it as well. Drag out another one. Again, THI. You can actually probably just do T, but whatever. Hit tab, do 10 again. And then one more, right click, repeat 2-point rectangle. Bring one over here. T, yep, see right there. Tab, 10. Enter. All right, so there's my 3 rectangles. Now I need to get these rectangles spaced evenly. The reason I chose 60 here, and then we have 10, 10, 10, that's 30. If we put spacing between them of 10 each, it all comes out to be 60. So I do another dimension. I go off of this side here, or you can do the other side too, it doesn't matter. I want 10 millimeters for this one. Then I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And I don't have to hit the D key again because it's already saying, hey, you probably want to do more dimensions. So click there and there, put in 10. That will actually center that one up. And then I click from this side of that rectangle to this one, and I get another 10. Now, I could dimension from here to here. That is also 10, but it doesn't need it because it knows that's the only dimension it can be. If I click and try to do it, it'll say, hey, this is over constrained, and put the dimension in parentheses, but we don't need that in there. All right. So that's essentially all of it. I also, though, want to do some little bit of fillets, kind of round this over a little bit. I typically do that on solid objects, but in this case I want it because I need to make an arc afterwards for the phone cord to go through, so it makes it easier to do it now. So up here under fillet, I can also go to modify fillet. This is a sketch fillet, so I click one side, I click the other. It wants to do 20. I'm just going to let it think that for a minute. I'm going to get this side and this side, come down here, this side and that side, and then last there. And then I want a fillet of 10, so it's a little less bold. You'll notice there's a little constraints or dimensions were removed. That's because we originally made this rectangle with these square corners and gave the dimensions off those square corners, and then we promptly kind of deleted those square corners. It's okay. It's just kind of saying, hey, you kind of got rid of some stuff that was important, but not that important for us. All right, last thing I want to do is make a little slot here, a little hoop arc to allow the phone cord to kind of fish through if we need to. So I'm going to go down here to create 3-point arc. And the reason I want to do it now is because if I hover over this side and go to the bottom and go back, it'll actually snap to the end of that arc. So I'm going to click there, and then I go to the other side, let it snap to the other arc, the beginning of that arc, and then I'm going to come up. You can do this high or low as you want. I'm going to just come up this far. Notice it's in blue because I haven't told it any dimensions. I just kind of snapped to a few things. It can be moved, but I'm good with that. Hit escape to get out of there, and then finish my sketch. All right. So now I'm going to extrude this, and this is kind of also a thing that's nice about it. I can extrude this, and I can type in thickness, and that will extrude it to whatever thickness of the material that I measure later. And I don't want these slots, that's good. I don't want this part, that's good. And that's it. That's my back. Now, I'll make another video of how to put like a logo here or a cutout. It's a little, this one's running long already, so if we spend another 10 minutes on that, you're going to be bored to death. So I'll just leave it at that. If you want to watch that part and figure that part out, it's just basically putting an SVG there and extruding it out as well. All right, let's head on down to the legs. So one of the other things we're going to take a look at is what's called project, where we're going to use this back to build our legs. So what I need to do first is I'm going to create a sketch, but this sketch I'm going to put on the back of our first piece. So it actually sees it there, and I just click on it. And notice here it says back. That's okay. I'm going to spin this around a little bit so you can see what's going on. So, actually, let me go back to here. So what happens is I'm going to project that, hit a P key. I can also, I think it's under create, down to project. I'm going to project this object onto my new one, but I want to come over here to bodies. I want to do everything. This would just pick up like specific things. If I click on bodies, it will pick up all of the parts that define it. So I'll go ahead and click OK. And notice now it has all of those pieces. This is not like we're not building this part. It's already built. But we're going to use, in our sketch, we wanted some of these dimensions. So we've already done them once. Why kind of make it over again? All right. So what I'm going to do is build a rectangle right here, 2-point rectangle. And I want to put it, I don't want it to snap on any of these like grids here. What I want to do is I want to say, hey, remember this. And as I pull this over, it'll actually remember where that was. And then I'm going to come down to this side, and then I'm going to snap to this piece, come over, and now it'll remember that. So it kind of has a little bit of a memory. So if you hover over something for a second to pull it to the other side, it'll remember that part. All right. So that was all I wanted to do with that sketch. So finish that sketch up. I'll kind of turn it a little bit so you can see what's going on. I just have a sketch just on the back of this thing. All right, so now I'm going to extrude, and I want to select all of those. Let me kind of zoom in. I want to select all of these little rectangles. So it's the holes as well as the ones that aren't. I'm going to pull this out and type in 60. All right, so this is going to create kind of the back part of the legs. Click OK. Now that's the back side, but I also still need the front side. I need one peg in the middle that comes out just as far as this, and 2 more pegs on the sides that come out to hold the phone. So what happened though was once I get done with that sketch, it kind of goes away. Well, I want that sketch back again, that projected sketch, because those holes, I want to use them again. So I go down here and open up the leg little chevron here and go down to the sketch. And here's that sketch, and notice it has this eye with a little slash through it. I'm going to turn this back on by clicking on that eye. So now I can actually pick up those rectangles again. Let me kind of move around here. There we go. So first one I want to extrude this one rectangle here. Notice it's not the front here. I'm actually hovering over and it's picking up that back part. And I'm going to pull this out and I'm going to just type in negative TH, and that's that thickness again, because I'm pulling this out exactly the thickness of the, and click OK, exactly the thickness of my part. These other two, however, I want a little bit more than that. So I'm going to hit extrude again. I'm going to select that and this one, and I'm going to pull these out, and I'm going to do, notice this is negative because it's going in the other direction than the first part I did. So I'm going to do negative 20 for that one. All right. So there's my 2 little kind of diving boards that are going to hold this on. I want to fix these up a little bit. I'm going to do a little fillet on them. So I'm going to grab each of those edges. The reason I'm doing this is actually for us when we go to assemble this. I'm going to type in 2 here. This makes it easier to push those in if it has a kind of like a little bit of a easier time to go through that hole. So there's that. This one here will sit flush with the face, so we don't really need that one to be filleted at all. All right, and then let me kind of work on this side here. So this back side here, we're also going to do a little bit of filleting. So it's right up here. You can also go to modify, fillet, that's the F key as well. Click this one, click this one. I'm going to do 10, just like I did on the other one. And then lastly, I want to put another arc here to allow for the cord to run underneath of this. So I can't just make an arc in the middle. I got to make a sketch first. I'm going to create a sketch, click on here, and then just go to create arc, 3-point arc. And then again, just like I did for the other one, I hover over this edge and it'll pop right to that corner. Hover over this edge, it'll pop right to that corner. And then you can pull this down, however far you want. Just going to go here, finish sketch, and then I'm going to extrude that out. So I'll just click this and pull it down. You can type in anything you want, but also another nice part is you can say instead of distance, you can just say all, and it'll just cut through everything. Another one you can do is say to object, and then select the back of it. So no matter how thick that piece of acrylic is, it knows to go through all of it. All right. So there's my phone stand there. This should take care of everything. It doesn't have the logo on here. Like I said, this video is going to be like 20 minutes, so we think that's enough boredom for one day. If you want to put an SVG on there, take a look at the other part of this video, or the other part, or the other video. All right, last thing we need to do. So we're going to send this to the laser cutter. Let me go back to activate everything. We're going to send this to the laser cutter. If you want, you can go to appearance and change this to frosted glass or whatever, but for our purposes, we really don't need that for now. To send it to the laser cutter, we can't just do print STL. The laser cutter doesn't recognize STLs. It recognizes a couple different ones, PDFs and stuff like that, but one it does recognize from Fusion is a DXF file. So what we want is a DXF file of just the faces of this. So basically I want a DXF file of just that face, and then I want a DXF file of just this face. Oh, that sketch is still on. Let me turn that sketch off. You can kind of see that there. Oh, there it is. So I just want a DXF file for this part. Well, the way to do that is by actually using sketches. So so all I need to do, I'm going to turn off the legs just so there's no confusion. Basically a kind of like a copy. If you put this on a copy, I'm going to say create sketch. Notice, let me go back so you can see what happened here. I'll undo. So right now there's only one. We laid all of the stuff. Create a new sketch. I just click create sketch and I hover over the face. Right. Notice a new sketch came up. These, click on it and save. Computer's running a little slow here. I'm going to, it's already there. Click save. All right, so that sketch right here, and I'm going to actually right click on it and call it back DXF. All right, let's turn off the back now and just turn on the legs. Activate the leg, make a sketch. So right now there's two sketches. The original, which we got all the dimensions off of, and that second sketch was the sketch that we used to make the little cutout here. So with this new sketch, I'm going to click create sketch. Click on that face. It doesn't matter which, because they're mirror images of each other, top and bottom. So I have this new sketch here. That's all I wanted. It made a sketch of it. I'm going to save it as a DXF, call it back, or excuse me, call it legs. Save. Legs already exist, yeah. And then I'm going to rename this just so I know legs DXF. All right. So turn it off now and turn on the back and turn off that sketch there. All right. So both of these now, you notice a little lock on here. That is telling me what was done to it. It's not editable. Just nothing can be done to them. It's the DXF files now. All right. Let me activate the original or the whole assembly. And there's our phone stand. So these DXF files, this is what you take into the laser cutter. Has its own little program. You actually have to print technically to it. So we open these up in Inkscape, or if you have Illustrator, you use it in there, and you actually go from there. You just click print, and it sends it to the laser cutter essentially through a program called Full spectrum laser, because that's the name of the company as well. So it just sends it from basically like kind of like MS Word. You just send it to the printer, in this case the laser cutter, and then the laser cutter goes from there and cuts these shapes out. So fairly easy. If you want to make sure that those DXFs have something in them, you can create a new file for a second and then just go here to insert, and there's actually an option for insert DXF. Choose a plane, doesn't matter which really, because we're not going to do anything with it. Select the DXF file, so I'll do back. You got to do one at a time, unfortunately. It takes a second for it to think, and then sure enough, there it is. I'll click OK, and then we do the same thing again. Insert DXF. I'm going to just select that same plane again. I'm going to select the legs, open. It'll put it right on top. That's okay. I can move it to give it a second. I can move it to the side, but now we can see that, click OK. We can see that those DXF files actually do exist. All right. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. When you're sending them to me, you can just email me the DXF files, come on in, and then we'll go through how to use the laser cutter. It's actually fairly simple. You just tell it how fast to run, and we just lay it out. So we'll actually lay these out so they're end to end rather than using up all the space like this, and go ahead and cut them out of acrylic. All right, hope this was helpful. Sorry it ran a little bit long, but I think we got everything we needed in there. All right, have a good day.